Lease Larry spent almost $10,000 less than Boomer Bill during the first 3 years. Lower payment, brand new car, full warranty, no surprise repair bills. For a while, Larry looked like the clear winner. But somewhere around year 5, something happened neither of them saw coming. The math flipped. And by year 10, the difference between their decisions had grown to more than $15,000. Today, we're going to follow both of them for an entire decade and see exactly where the numbers diverge. And somewhere along the way, Crypto Kyle is going to make one of the worst financial decisions I've ever seen. Again, let's begin. Lease Larry and Boomer Bill are both ready. Both are teachers. Both earn about $52,000 per year. They've been friends since college, and by pure coincidence, they decide to replace their aging cars during the same month. After weeks of research, they both settle on the exact same vehicle, a $32,000 compact SUV. Reliable, practical, strong resale value. The kind of car nobody dreams about but everybody recommends. Same car, same dealership, same income. The only difference? How they pay for it. Lease Larry goes first. 30 minutes later, he's sitting across from a finance manager who has perfected the art of making expensive things sound affordable. The manager slides a piece of paper across the desk. $319 per month. Larry's eyes light up. That's it? The manager smiles. Brand new car, full warranty, no repair headaches. In 3 years, you hand it back and get another one. Larry loves everything he's hearing, especially the $319. Because when most people buy a car, they don't ask what it costs. They ask what the payment is. And $319 sounds fantastic. So Larry signs. $1,500 due at signing. 36-month lease. 12,000 miles per year. Done. 1 week later, Boomer Bill walks into the same dealership. Same SUV, different philosophy. Bill puts $4,000 down and signs a 60-month loan at 6.5%. His payment? $541 per month. As he's driving home, Larry calls him. Wait, you're paying $541? Yep. For the same car? Yep. Larry starts laughing. Dude, I'm paying $319. Bill sighs. I know. That's over $200 more every month. I know. You got ripped off. Bill pauses. Or maybe you rented a car. Larry immediately changes the subject. Meanwhile, Crypto Kyle has entered the chat because every financial story needs one guy making terrible decisions. Kyle pulls up beside them in a BMW, a very expensive BMW. Larry stares. Nice car. Kyle grins. Thanks. Leased it. Bill raises an eyebrow. How much? Kyle suddenly becomes interested in the weather. Bill raises the other eyebrow. How much? Kyle sighs. $1,180 a month. Silence. Larry nearly spits out his coffee. Bill looks like he's about to call Kyle's parents. Kyle. Bill takes a deep breath. You make $52,000 a year. Kyle nods confidently. It's called manifestation. No, Kyle. It's called a car payment. For the first year, Larry looks like the obvious winner. His payment is lower. His SUV is under warranty. He doesn't think about repair bills. He doesn't think about depreciation. He doesn't think about anything. He just enjoys driving a new car for $319 per month. Bill's experience is very different. Every month he watches money leave his bank account while his car loses value. The day he drove his SUV off the lot, it immediately started depreciating. By the time he got home, It was worth closer to $29,000 than $32,000. A few months later, closer to $27,000. His loan balance? Still hovering around $29,500, which means he owes more than the car is worth. That's called being underwater. And it feels terrible. Nobody enjoys owing $29,500 on something worth $27,000. But here's the important part, it's temporary, and most people don't realize that because they're too focused on the monthly payment. Fast forward 3 years. Now we finally get our first scoreboard. Lease Larry has paid $1,500 up front, plus 36 monthly payments of $319. Total spent $13,984. Not bad, but there's one small problem. Larry owns absolutely nothing. Not the engine, not the tires, not even the floor mats. The dealership still owns the vehicle. Larry was essentially renting it for 3 years. Now let's look at Boomer Bill. Bill has paid $4,000 down, plus 36 payments of $541. Total spent $23,476. Almost $10,000 more than Larry, which sounds terrible. But Bill's loan balance has fallen to roughly $13,200, and the SUV itself is still worth around $19,500. For the first time, the car's worth more than the debt attached to it. The underwater phase is over. At first glance, Larry still looks like the winner. He spent $9,492 less. That's real money. A vacation, an emergency fund, a semester of college tuition. And if all we're looking at is monthly payments, the debate is over. Larry wins. Case closed. But unfortunately for Larry, the monthly payment conversation is exactly where most people stop thinking, and where the real story is only beginning. Because month 36 has arrived. Larry's lease is ending, and now he has a decision to make. Month 36 arrives. Larry's lease is ending, and now he faces the same three options every leaser eventually faces. Option 1. Buy the vehicle at the residual value, the price that was agreed upon 3 years earlier. For a $32,000 SUV, that's usually somewhere between $17,000 and $19,000. Option 2. Hand over the keys and walk away. Option 3. Start over, new lease, new car, new contract, new monthly payment. Can you guess which one Larry chooses? Larry walks into the dealership. The salesperson greets him like an old friend. Ready to see the new models? Larry wasn't planning on looking, but now he's looking. 5 minutes later, he's sitting inside a newer SUV. Bigger screen, new features, new smell. The salesperson points to the dashboard. It has wireless everything. Larry nods. I'm listening. The payment stays basically the same. Larry nods again. I'm interested. The seats have built-in cooling. Larry signs. Just like that. Another $1,500 due at signing. Another $319 per month. Another 36-month lease. Another countdown begins. The payment never stopped, it simply reset. And that's an important distinction, because most people think of a lease as a temporary expense. But for many drivers, leasing becomes permanent. The car changes, the payment doesn't. Meanwhile, Boomer Bill has a very different relationship with month 37. He still has 2 years left on his loan. And let's be honest, that's not exciting. Nobody throws a party because they only have 24 payments remaining. But something important has changed. Every payment Bill makes now is one step closer to being finished forever. He can see the finish line. It's real, it's dated, and every month it gets closer. Then month 60 arrives. Bill makes his final payment. That's it. No fireworks, no trophy, no congratulatory email from the bank. Just silence. The $541 payment disappears. The title arrives. And for the first time in 5 years, the SUV is completely his. No lender, no lease company, no monthly payment, just ownership. Larry? Still paying $319, same as always. In fact, it's become so normal that he barely notices it anymore. It leaves his account every month with the same emotional impact as Netflix. The payment has become background noise. And that's one of the biggest traps leasing creates. After a few years, it stops feeling like a financial decision. It just feels like life. The payment exists, the car exists. End of thought. Let's fast forward to year 6. Time for another scoreboard. Lease Larry has now completed 2 full lease cycles, 2 signing payments, 72 monthly payments. Total spent $25,968. And what does he own? Nothing. He's currently driving a 2-year-old SUV that still belongs to the leasing company. Now let's look at Boomer Bill. Bill paid $4,000 down, plus 60 monthly payments of $541. Total spent $36,460. At first glance, that sounds much worse than Larry's number. But there's a catch. Bill's SUV is now worth somewhere between $12,000 and $14,500, which means his effective cost isn't $36,460. It's closer to $22,000 to $24,000. Because he still owns something of value. And this is where the entire story quietly changes. Nobody announces it. Nobody sends a notification. No dramatic music plays. But sometime around year 5, the math flips. Larry's effective cost passes Bill's. And from that moment forward, every month Bill drives payment-free widens the gap. A little more. Every single month. Now let's talk about the part that dealerships don't put in giant letters on the advertisement. The fine print. Because the famous $319 per month doesn't tell the whole story. Not even close. Let's start with mileage limits. Larry's lease allows 12,000 miles per year. Sounds reasonable, except the average American drives roughly 13,500. Larry is a teacher. He commutes. He coaches weekend sports. He drives more than he expected. Year 1, no problem. Year 2, a little close. Year 3, uh-oh. When lease end inspection arrives, Larry discovers he's driven about 4,200 miles over the limit. Penalty, 22 cents per mile. Total, $924. Larry stares at the bill. Wait, they're charging me because I drove the car? The leasing company replies, correct. Larry blinks. Isn't that the purpose of a car? The leasing company replies, that'll be $924. Then comes the condition inspection. An inspector slowly walks around the SUV with a clipboard, a small scrape on the rear bumper, 2 windshield chips. Nothing dramatic, nothing Larry even noticed. But according to the lease agreement, billable. Another invoice appears, $410. Larry is beginning to suspect the dealership missed him. And finally, the infamous disposition fee. Larry decides he might try a different brand next time. The dealership smiles politely and hands him another bill. $395. Larry stares at it. What's this one for? Processing the return. You're charging me to give you your car back? Correct. Larry briefly considers learning how to ride a bicycle. When you add everything together, Larry's first lease didn't really cost $13,984. It cost much closer to $15,713. And the worst part? Almost all those extra costs arrive at the very end, long after you've forgotten they exist. Now, before the comment section accuses me of picking on leasing, let's be fair. Boomer Bill has expenses that Larry doesn't, and we're about to find out exactly what those are. Now, before we crown Boomer Bill the winner and send Lease Larry back to the dealership, let's be fair. Buying comes with costs too. They're just different costs. And unlike lease fees, they tend to arrive when you're least prepared for them. Month 37. Bill's warranty expires. Nothing happens immediately, which is exactly how car problems like to operate. They wait. Month 41. Rear brake pads, a few $100s, annoying but manageable. Month 44. 4 new tires, another bill. Bill doesn't enjoy it. Nobody has ever posted on social media about how excited they were to buy tires. Then month 49 arrives, and with it, a coolant leak. The mechanic calls. Good news and bad news. Nobody has ever liked hearing those words. A few hours later, Bill is staring at a repair bill for $780. His entire weekend is ruined. Over the next 2 years, Bill spends roughly $2,600 on maintenance and repairs. Some months, it's just routine service. Some months, it's a surprise. That's the reality of ownership. The mechanic doesn't care about your budget. Cars break when they feel like it. Meanwhile, Lease Larry watches all of this happen from a safe distance. His vehicle is still under warranty. His monthly payment never changes. His costs are predictable. And that predictability has value. There's no denying that. A lease payment is boring, but at least it's predictable. A mechanic's invoice is neither. But here's the part most people miss, and it's probably the most important concept in this entire video. Depreciation changes over time, a lot. When Bill bought his SUV, the vehicle lost value incredibly fast. The first few years were brutal, thousands of dollars disappearing every year. But eventually something interesting happened. The depreciation curve flattened. By year 4 and year 5, the SUV wasn't losing $4,000 per year anymore. It might lose $800, maybe $1,200. That's it. The biggest losses were already behind him. Think about it like a new smartphone. The moment the latest model comes out, last year's model loses value immediately. But once it's 5 years old, nobody cares anymore. The value stabilizes. Cars work the same way. And that's why ownership rewards patience. The longer you keep the vehicle, the cheaper each year becomes. Leasing works differently. Every time Larry starts a new lease, he resets the depreciation clock. Again and again and again. He's constantly paying for the most expensive years of ownership, the years when cars lose value the fastest. Now let's zoom all the way out. 10 years, the full picture. No dealership sales pitch, no monthly payment tricks, just the math. Over 10 years, Lease Larry completes 3 full lease cycles and starts a 4th. Each cycle comes with monthly payments, a signing payment, mileage fees, wear and tear charges, and whatever surprise fees the leasing company discovers while reading the fine print. His total spending lands somewhere between $48,000 and $55,000. And after 10 years, Larry doesn't own a car, or more accurately, he's driving a car that belongs to somebody else. Now, let's look at Boomer Bill. Bill paid off his loan after 5 years, then spent another 4 to 5 years driving payment-free. His total spending, including maintenance, lands somewhere around $46,000 to $50,000. Very similar to Larry at first glance. But here's the difference. Bill still owns the SUV. Even after 10 years, it's worth roughly $4,000 to $7,000. Subtract that value from his total cost, and his effective ownership cost becomes $39,000 to $46,000. On the optimistic end, the gap is small. On the realistic end, Boomer Bill comes out ahead by roughly $10,000 to $15,000, and he still has a vehicle sitting in his driveway. Now imagine repeating that decision for your entire adult life. 5 cars, 6 cars, 7 cars. Every time choosing between leasing forever or buying and holding. Suddenly, we're not talking about $15,000 anymore. We're talking about 6 figures. That's retirement money. That's investment money. That's life-changing money. But now comes the important question. Is there ever a situation where leasing actually wins? The answer is yes. Absolutely. And pretending otherwise would be dishonest. Let's say Larry runs a tutoring business. He uses the vehicle primarily for work. In many situations, lease expenses can provide tax advantages that ownership doesn't. That changes the math dramatically. In some cases, it can completely reverse the outcome. Or maybe Larry drives a luxury vehicle, a really expensive one. The kind where a routine service visit feels like a small hostage negotiation. For those vehicles, staying inside the warranty period has genuine financial value. Leasing becomes a form of insurance against catastrophic repair costs. And there is one more scenario, the scenario every leasing advocate loves. Remember the difference between Larry's payment and Bill's payment? Roughly $222 per month. What if Larry invested that money every month into a low-cost index fund, without missing a single contribution, for 10 straight years? The math says that investment could potentially erase most of the gap. Maybe all of it. Maybe even surpass it. The numbers support that possibility. There's just one small problem. Crypto Kyle. Because Crypto Kyle is exactly what happens when people tell themselves they'll invest the difference. Kyle never invested the difference. He leased a BMW. Then he bought custom wheels. Then he financed a watch. Then he started a cryptocurrency podcast. Nobody listened. The money didn't go into an index fund. It disappeared, like it usually does. That's the challenge. The leasing strategy only works if you're disciplined enough to actually invest the savings. Not theoretically. Actually. Every month for years. Most people don't do that, and the math knows it. So where does that leave us? For the average person, driving an average car, an average number of miles, buying wins, not immediately, not at the dealership, not in year one, and not in a way that feels obvious when you're staring at 2 different monthly payments, but over time, the advantage becomes very clear. Lease Larry focused on the payment. Boomer Bill focused on ownership. One got a lower payment, the other got a finish line. And that's the entire lesson. The dealership will almost always show you the monthly payment first, because it's the easiest number to sell. A $32,000 vehicle sounds expensive. $319 per month sounds manageable. That's not an accident. What they won't show you is a 10-year spreadsheet. They won't show you the mileage penalties, the disposition fees, the wear and tear charges, or the exact moment when your friend's expensive purchase quietly becomes cheaper than yours. So before you sign anything, ask a different question. Don't ask, what's the monthly payment? Ask, what will this cost me after 10 years? Payments, fees, maintenance, depreciation, resale value, everything. Because that's the number that actually matters. And if Crypto Kyle offers financial advice, run.